Right then guys, welcome to the Motorcast channel, where today we're going to be reviewing the 5th ePrix in this Formula E 2016 to 2017 season, and today I'm joined by Toby and Josh, and we're going to be reviewing the Monaco ePrix. I think I've already said that, but let's head into it. So, the first team we're going to be discussing is the team that's really been dominating this season so far, Renault Edams, and Sebastian Buemi won the ePrix, took pole position, and really it was just an easy day for him, wasn't it? Josh, we'll start with you. You know, Renault's day, Buemi's day, how do you think it went?
Yeah, interesting one really. I mean, it was their first pole position of the season, pretty incredibly, for Sebastian Buemi. And then the race, like you said, was fairly easy. Obviously, did have quite a bit of pressure from Degrassi, particularly towards the end. That kind of safety car wiped out what was a brilliant advantage early on. I really thought he was just going to run off into the distance in kind of the first half of the race, because he was so strong, and really quite an ominous message sent out there really for Buemi. Exactly what he needed after what was quite a bit of a nightmare in Mexico. This is the definition of bouncing back.
So, Toby, I mean, do you think Buemi's got the championship wrapped up? He's won 4 ePrix so far this season. Do you think, do you really see Degrassi or anyone really taking the championship fight to Buemi?
Well, first off, let me just congratulate Josh, his first Formula E podcast since December, was it? The first one we ever did. So, welcome back, Josh. But, yeah, you're exactly right. But, what would just juxtapose that is that, we had the gap. It was an even bigger gap after the third ePrix, and then he had such a terrible ePrix in Mexico. There is the question that he won't do that again, he won't make the same mistake, but 4 out of 5 wins, that's an 80% record, and that's pretty darn good, to be fair. Bit of a question maybe that Degrassi could have been more aggressive, but, with 4 out of 5 wins, an 80% season win record in any formula would be a worthy season champion for anyone.
We've already mentioned Degrassi there, so we'll head on into his, unless we got anything to say about Nikko Cross actually, but he had a pretty anonymous race, didn't he, for the other Edam driver. I don't think, Nikko Cross finished in 9th once you take into account Antonio Felix da Costa's penalty, but really, well, actually, no, let's talk about Prost, because he really has been in the shadow compared to his teammates. Do you think, would you say that Prost's season has been, or at the very least this ePrix, would you say it's been a disappointment, Josh?
Yeah, I think it has been. Although I don't think we're really expecting much more from Nikko Cross, to be honest, this season. To be fair to him, he is still third in the championship, and he's had a pretty decent season up until now, really. But of course, just nowhere near Buemi, and, if he didn't have that surname, then he wouldn't be in the team. Pretty simple, but at the end of the day, he's not the worst driver ever, and he's still doing a pretty solid job. And Renault Edams are still probably going to win the Constructors' Championship. So I guess really in the end, it doesn't really matter too much that Prost is in that car. He's not taking points off Buemi, but then again, he's not taking points off Degrassi. So yeah, we can talk all day long about kind of getting a second driver in there, a different driver over to Prost. But to be honest, I can't really see it happening, even if we do have more of these kind of results.
And Toby, again, what do you think about Nikko Cross? Do you really think he should still be a part of the team? Because, really, if you were running a team and you have one driver who's, got 80% of the race wins and then Nikko Cross too, fair enough, this race was especially bad, compared to his other races. But, do you really think, would you still have him as the team, in the team?
Well, I think I could count on one hand or less, the amount of times that Prost has been above Buemi in his whole career in Formula E. Might be a bit more, but I think it's been the story of his career that Buemi's always been that number one driver and Prost being that number 2 driver. Like Josh says, really, he's just there to get points, not mount a championship charge. But to be fair, with the quality of Buemi, there's very much so. I think there's 5 or 6 real quality drivers in this grid that could really battle for a title. I don't think Prost is one of them, and that's a real shame. But there you go. But well, nothing more to say. As Josh said, because he's got that surname, he'll stay in the team until even until Alan's gone, which I can imagine is going to be quite a while. Yeah, because Formula E is just moving.
Yeah, beautifully said. So we'll head back towards Apt. I was going to mention them a second ago, but anyway, we'll head to Apt now. So we got Lucas Degrassi, who finished in 2nd place this race, and really it's just been kind of the story of this season, really, apart from the Mexico ePrix, which was manic, really, but it's been the story of this season, really, with Buemi winning and Degrassi in 2nd, and, he did mount a charge for the race win come the end, but Josh, do you really think he could win the championship? Or, he was close to winning this race. But, too little too late, wasn't it?
Yeah, very true in this particular race. But as Toby mentioned earlier, obviously Degrassi won in Mexico and Buemi had a bit of a wobbler. He's had wobblers in the past and Degrassi is right on terms with him. For me, Degrassi is the only guy in this field that's going to beat Buemi this season to that championship. And I think it honestly could, to be honest. Although, I'm not going to change my prediction of, Buemi not winning the championship. You've got to remember, of course, that there is the major possibility that he's going to be missing the last round as well. So if you factor that in, and Degrassi being right on his tail, and Buemi will inevitably have problems. And to be fair, this is the first race that he's kind of led from lights to flag, really. The other races he's kind of had to come through. Especially, for example, in Hong Kong, all the other drivers were basically having problems and he kind of swooped through and won that race. So really, I don't think, although Buemi is dominating this season in terms of results, he's not dominating every single race in terms of leading from lights to flag. So I think there are weaknesses, and if anyone's going to exploit them, it's going to be Lucas Degrassi.
Certainly, but Toby, so Lucas Degrassi so nearly won this race come the end. He finished, right behind, he's right on the gearbox of, they do have gears, but anyway, he was right behind Buemi come the end. But there was this, I remember watching the race live and thinking, that Degrassi at some point in the last 3 laps, was going to use his fan boost, but as it turned out, come the end, that because he used more than half of his battery, he wasn't able to use fan boost. So, do you reckon that was a mistake on his part? One of the very few mistakes we can attribute to Degrassi this race?
Look, he used the words nearly, close, but, the connotations that those words have is the fact that he could have finished 5 tenths behind, I should say, just on his gearbox. He could have finished a minute behind, but still, he just still gets the same points per second, so yes, I think he should have been a bit more aggressive, and as Josh informed me before we started this, apparently Degrassi could have only used the fan boost when he had the first 50% of his his second car, and because he didn't use that, he didn't get to use that at the end. But should he have been more aggressive? I don't know. Will he live to regret it at the end of the season? If he doesn't win the championship and it's saved by about 4 or 5 points, then, well, yes, definitely. I was going to say probably, but definitely. Just like to comment on decent P7 for Daniel Abt too. A little bit of a similar thing for Renault and Abt, really, with Prost and Abt being the definite number 2 drivers. With, Degrassi and Buemi just a class apart this year from anybody else, really, in the field.
Yeah, Josh, I don't know if you have anything else to say on the Daniel Abt front, really, but I mean, with, Degrassi finishing in 2nd, Daniel Abt in 7th. Yeah, it's not quite the same gulf between Buemi and Prost, but, again, would you say it was a disappointing race of Daniel Abt, or not so, really?
No, I thought, to be honest, Abt did a pretty solid job, I think, all weekend. In the race, he got his elbows out, made a couple of pretty good moves, and finished 7th overall. At least, for me, Daniel Abt is a guy that could improve to kind of, not to Lucas Degrassi's level, but at least to a higher level, whereas Prost is kind of, in the latter half of his career, looking towards retirement now, so at least Abt has the potential, I think, to grow more than Prost. But yeah, it is a decent comparison, and both are kind of at a similar kind of gulf between the teammates. Maybe, like you mentioned, though, maybe Prost is a little bit more behind, but at the end of the day, Prost is 3rd in the championship and Abt is 7th, so maybe that suggests that, Renault do have the superior car, and that's probably hard to argue against. But yeah, I think Abt did an okay job this weekend, I think, kind of an average weekend for him.
Okay, and so the next team we're going to move on to is Techeetah, I can't say it, Techeetah, who didn't finish 3rd or 4th actually. They finished in 8th. Well, Esteban Gutierrez at the very least finished in 8th. So his first kind of sizable points really in only his 2nd Formula E race. He scored 4 points today. Let's not forget. Gutierrez, yes, he's been in Formula 1 for a long time, but still very much a Formula E rookie. Toby, would you say that, that was a decent result for Gutierrez, to finish in 8th in a Techeetah, which is, to all intents and purposes, a customer Renault Edams?
Well, as you say, it's a customer Renault Edams, so surely it can't be that bad, considering what Buemi's doing with it. But it's good to see him building foundations. In that interview I did with Sam Bird, he stated, Formula E is not one of these places that, broken F1 drivers come just to get a bit more popularity and rebuild themselves. And like he said, there's a lot of good F1, got a lot of good ex-Formula 1 drivers here, such as Gutierrez, but Gutierrez getting those 4 points, it's something or nothing really. It's because he's not going to challenge for anything this year. Maybe, if he's looking to compete in Formula E next year, then, just consolidate with these good results and decent results, maybe start impressing the team a little bit for him to keep him and Vernon. That'd be a solid team for next year. And who knows what they could do next year, but I just think for Gutierrez, it's a solid result, but I don't really think much more could be expected of him, really, because considering he's a rookie and the likes of Rosenqvist, PK have been doing a lot more, the likes of PK, Heidfeld, Degrassi and Beni racing throughout Formula E, whereas Gutierrez has only done 2 races, you can't really compare them to him yet whatsoever.
And then it really was a day of what could have been really for the other Techeetah drivers. Jean-Eric Vergne qualified first originally prior to the Superpole session. He was the quickest, but then once the Superpole session came around, he ended up qualifying in 4th. And then there was that incident at I was going to say Nouvelle Chicane, but I guess with this layout of Monaco, it's the Nouvelle hairpin between Jean-Eric Vergne and Nelson Piquet. So, Josh, I was just interested to find, what are your thoughts on that incident? Was it Piquet's fault? Was it Vergne's fault? Was it a racing incident?
Yeah, a racing incident, I think, for me. Piquet probably should have left a bit more room, I'd say. But it was so tight. I mean, it's Monaco as well. They were all getting a bit argy-bargy. It was the second round of their fight because they'd already done the same trying to make the same move the lap before, and this was kind of round 2, so it was all getting a bit elbows out, a bit kind of desperate. Piquet's always robust. Vergne would have known that, but Vergne himself is pretty stubborn as well. So I think it was mainly just stubbornness and a bit unlucky really. The way they kind of connected and Vergne got flown into the barriers was slightly unlucky. Piquet on the other hand was very, very lucky because the safety car came out. He made his car swap and was right back in it, and I think only lost 1 place to Heidfeld. So Piquet was very lucky, Vergne not so much. So yeah, overall I think probably a bit of a racing incident, but pretty unfortunate to see because Vergne looked pretty quick, and maybe if there'd have been a safety car he might be able to challenge the top 2. You never know, because he did look pretty quick, especially in qualifying like you mentioned.
Well, you mentioned Nick Heidfeld there, and that he really did have a fantastic race, to be honest. Qualified down in 8th originally, but then was able to take the final podium position, finished in 3rd come the end, and that means that Nick Heidfeld is the only person to get a podium in Formula E and Formula 1 around Monaco. So, Toby, I was just thinking, Nick Heidfeld, a fantastic race really, but fantastic race. What do you think about it?
He's a class driver, so is his teammate Rosenqvist. Like I said, I think it's last round of the round before, they've got one of the best lineups on the grid in my opinion, because Rosenqvist has shown his hand really early. We're getting that podium in Hong Kong. Heidfeld getting a podium here. It's a bit silly what happened in Mexico between the two, but they've got a good driver lineup, and Heidfeld, like you say, he's maturing in age, but look at Formula 1 with the likes of Massa and Alonso. He's matured in age, but it never leaves them. The only thing that leaves them, perhaps, is maybe the fitness, but obviously not for Heidfeld at the moment. 3rd place, and he wasn't that far off the leaders so much necessarily. I'm actually trying to get the standings up. 13 seconds behind, and to be fair, that actually isn't too bad. That isn't a massive gulf behind. And he dominated his other candidates and other people, because as you can see, there was 5 seconds behind him. So that's just proof in the pudding that he's had a solid weekend. So has Mara Wengel, who we'll talk about a little bit later. His teammate Rosenqvist had a good weekend as well. But driver of the day for me is definitely Heidfeld today.
And then we've already mentioned Rosenqvist actually, but yes, overall quite a decent day for Mahindra, with Heidfeld in 3rd and Rosenqvist in 6th. So Josh, Mahindra's kind of a team that always there or thereabouts. They still haven't got a win this season. Obviously, no one's really going to get a win this season with Buemi dominating the top step of the podium. But I was just wondering how would you rate Mahindra's race over the course of... how would you rate Mahindra's race, Josh?
Yeah, I think they probably extracted what was probably the maximum, I'd say, from this race. Maybe Rockensvist could have maybe got a little bit higher, but was kind of compromised at the start. Heidfeld, on the other hand, gained a lot of places at the start, and then when the safety car was deployed, he managed to gain a place on Piquet. I think really, really good stuff from both Heidfeld and Felix. Like Toby mentioned, I'd say it is probably one of the strongest overall lineups. In fact, it might be the strongest overall lineup, considering the kind of average number 2s at both Renault, Edams and Abt. So I think they probably have the strongest overall team. That's reflected in the standings as well. If you look at them, you can see that Mahindra are 3rd in the team standings, which is pretty impressive. And I think they could probably definitely take that third place right to the end of the season, which I think would be a fantastic achievement for them and a marked improvement on their first 2 years. Definitely, I think that they're set for the best year yet. In terms of a win, it could happen. It should have happened before. So I don't see any reason why it can't happen again, although it might take a bit of a pinch of luck. But I think they've shown if they can get qualifying in the race to both together, then either Heidfeld or Rosenqvist. Well, I'd say Rosenqvist I think is most likely to get the win. I can't really see Heidfeld winning a race, but I think Felix could.
So there you go. I think that wraps up Mahindra, and the next team is Next EV. Now, we've already discussed the crash involving PK and Jean-Eric Vergne, but still, despite that, even though Jean-Eric Vergne retired because of that incident, Nelson Piquet was able to take fourth come the end. And then we got Oliver Turvey, who really just did nothing that race. He finished all the way down in 13th place. And apart from the crash that Turvey had in practice, that was kind of the most noteworthy thing he did all race, really. So, or all weekend. So Josh, Next EV, brilliant for PK, not so good for Oliver Turvey. So overall, how would you say they did this weekend?
Definitely better than they have done in the past, because I do believe, and correct me if I'm wrong here, but I do believe this is Nelson Piquet's best result in Formula E since he won in Moscow in the very first season. So they finally got it together, because Piquet I think has been in, I want to say 4 Super Poles this season, and it's obviously this is now his best result. So he's definitely been under-delivering I think in the races. Next do have a bit of a qualifying car at the moment, and Piquet showed that probably quite again this weekend, but finally managed to get I think a really good result in the race, and the podium should be too far away for them. Turvey just an off weekend, so I'm not gonna throw shade at Turvey because I think it was just an off weekend, so he'll be back on form I'm sure in Paris.
Well, you don't want to throw shade at him, but I'm wondering if Toby will. That crash in practice, really, Toby, because that is kind of the only thing I think we can really say about him. That crash in practice, would you say, would you say that was his fault? It was involving Rosenqvist, I think, as well, wasn't it? But yeah, Turvey, his weekend was, how would you rate his weekend? Because I'd say it was, pretty bad, considering, where PK finished come the end.
To be very unprofessional here, it was a little bit of a tit. To be quite honest, that's the only word I can really use to describe it, because he definitely shouldn't have slowed down that much under that yellow flag. It was a bit ridiculous, and he obviously didn't see in his mirrors. But his weekend, not really much to comment on, a bit of a meh weekend, and we come back to that debate again, don't we? Again with that number 1 and number 2 driver. It's clear that PK's the number 1 driver. PK and Turvey have been a good combination, and Turvey's actually done well. But it's just clear that, like Beni and Prost, I don't think Turvey's going to beat Beni. Well, he's probably not going to beat Beni, but he's not going to beat PK Jr. anytime soon, in my opinion.
Well, there you go. And so on to Venturi now. Now it's obviously Venturi's home race, the Monegasque-based team. And Mauro Engel, he's also a Monegasque, isn't he? Mauro Engel.
Oh, he lives in Monaco.
Yes, but he's lived in
Monaco.
Monaco.
He lives in Monaco,
sorry.
That's why I thought that. No, yeah, he is. Yeah.
He's an honorary Monegasque driver.
Yeah,
yes.
okay.
And he finally got
fine.
the result he deserves, and that's all I'm going to say.
Okay, thanks, Josh, for that. But no, yeah, that's why I thought he was Monegasque, because they kept saying in the commentary that he lived in Monaco all of his life. But Mauro Engel, second in qualifying prior to the race starting. Well, no, second in qualifying prior to Superpole, fourth come the end of Superpole, and then ended up finishing in 5th. So it kind of went backwards over the course of the day, really. But Toby, since Josh has already summed up his thoughts on it, Toby, how would you feel about Mauro Engel at his sort of home race?
Pretty much summed it up, Josh did, but just the fact that he's had a few really torrid weekends with reliability, and it's just nice to see him, especially his home race, a real honour to do well at home and get that 5th place, because the Venturi car isn't the best. It's clear. Hasn't been the best all the season. Maybe better than the Dragon and the Jaguar, apart from that, and maybe the Andretti, but I'd struggle to say many other cars that it's better than. But there's not much between this field anyway. But not brilliant for Sarrazin this weekend, but it just clear that Engel outperformed the car and outperformed himself in some ways this weekend, because you could argue that Venturi shouldn't be up there, but that's all down to Engel today, and well done to him. But that's it really for Venturi this weekend. Some brilliant points picked up, some solid 10 points, which certainly help them in constructors in the long term.
And certainly a team that did pick up a solid point, sort of unexpectedly, was Jaguar. Come the end, they finished in, Mitch Evans finished in 11th, but thanks to Da Costa's penalty, Mitch Evans actually ended up finishing in 10th, so he was able to secure 1 point for Jaguar. And Jaguar, at the start of the season, certainly were the slowest team, but Josh, would you say that Jaguar now are definitely the backmarkers, or, where would you say Jaguar are compared to, the other teams in terms of pace?
I think they're right on the back of the pack now. They're not last in the standings. That unfortunately goes to Venturi, who only had 3 points before this weekend, but of course now Engel's helped them get a bit closer. Yeah, I think Jaguar are still pretty slow, to be honest. Evans was, I think, fairly lucky, to be honest, to get a point today. I mean, he drove a really good race, and he's really is leading that team. With all due respect to Adam Carroll, Evans has had the better of him really all season, and he really does look like a really good guy to kind of lead Jaguar into the future. They're probably going to try and attract another driver for next season because they're showing pretty good pace, I think, so far this year. And it's important as well for the sport that Jaguar do well and they show good progress throughout this year, because it just basically sends a message to new manufacturers saying that you can come in, you can make progress fairly quickly, and you can be right up there. Obviously, a massive result in Mexico, and this was another good point, I think, for them. So hopefully they can kind of continue this over the next few rounds and possibly start to overtake a few teams. It's hard to say really which cars are faster because the Venturi never works and neither does the Dragon really. So it's kind of, I think, right between those two, kind of at the back, I'd say. But, catching all the time, which is great to see.
Bit brutal, but, beautifully summed up there. But I'd actually argue that the Dragon's the slowest car at the moment. Okay, it was a double DNF for them today. We will talk to them about a little bit later about their reliability. But I would put Jaguar just above Dragon. That might be tested next week in Paris. But who knows? I think the Dragon's the slowest car. But I don't know about you, Josh. But I think the Dragon's the slowest just at the moment.
Well, there you go. I'm not going to get involved in that debate. I'm the host. I'm not saying anything. But so that's Jaguar nicely summed up, I think. Yes, so on to Virgin, and the team which, heading into this race, was third in the team's championship, but really just was not a great weekend for them. Sam Bird finishing down in 19th. He did get the fastest lap, but that's pretty much all we can really say for Sam Bird. And then you got Lopez, who finished down in 16th come the end. I believe Lopez, we had to come into the pits to repair some damage, didn't
Damage at the front, damage at the back. It was just a mess.
Yeah, okay, and then Sam Bird also had to come into the pits for damage, but in a more spectacular fashion. It was lap 7, and he went into the outside wall coming out of the swimming pool section, wasn't it? But, just Virgin, really, if you take those kind of incidents out of the equation, where really do you think they could have finished? Josh, we'll start with you.
Judging on the practice pace, they should have been on the podium, but, kind of as we saw qualifying and a bit more of their race pace, probably just kind of high points finishes would be the more realistic target, which is a shame. It seems like a regular theme now, like every weekend they seem to show really good pace at certain points in the weekend. Both Bird and Lopez, who's getting better and better each race, Lopez, which is great to see. Both of them have really shown that they could be right up there, could be getting podiums, and of course Bird has got 2 podiums this season. But once again, it's just more inconsistencies, which is really preventing Bird from challenging for the title. And I think when we kind of say which drivers are kind of capable of challenging for that title, I think when Toby mentioned the kind of 5 or 6 drivers that really could challenge for a title, I think Bird is definitely within that. But unfortunately, kind of been a bit held back by that DS version. And of course, it was a mistake from Bird as well, and kind of Lopez as well, although both were a bit unfortunate. So I think kind of handling and setup woes probably to blame for that, and and overall just a really disappointing weekend, and unfortunately another really disappointing weekend. This is not a one-off, unfortunately.
No, certainly isn't. I know as a Sam Bird fan, I know that there's a lot of bad luck and mistakes that Sam Bird does. It's a hard time being a fan of him, but Toby, so when Sam Bird had his incident, we knew that we might have been when Lopez came in, but either way, I remember when one of the cars was coming in, they were getting out the hammers, trying to bash bits of the bodywork back into place. But we've got it written down here that should they have changed Sam Bird's car rather than trying to repair the broken one?
Well, to answer that question, yes, they should have changed the car. I think it was just a lack of planning, and I don't think Virgin expected it. And I think they must have thought that the damage wasn't as bad as it was, because if they knew that the damage was as bad as it was, they'd have just brought him in straight away. But there was the risk, obviously, that his other car would have run out of battery. But, the only salvage really that Virgin get out of this weekend, not really much else to say. It's just that they got a 1 point for fastest lap of Bird. They matched the likes of Jaguar. They got more than Andretti and Dragon. So it might be a horrible weekend, but if you look at the situations of some of them at the bottom, I mean, that some of them would love that. So all not so bad. You can only look on the bright side for Virgin, unfortunately.
Okay, so on to the second to last team. So we got Andretti. Now, I don't know how long we're going to talk about them for, because we've just got it written down here that it says no points because of Antonio Felix da Costa's penalty for the unsafe release, which primarily gave Jaguar their point this Grand Prix, with Mitch Evans finishing in 10th. But aside from da Costa's penalty for a unsafe pit release, there are no talking points. That's what it's got written down here. So I don't know if you two have got anything to say about Andretti, about their race today, but is there anything you two want to say?
Well, they've said no talking points, because there literally is no talking points apart from the Andretti team are plonkers because they sent da Costa out really early for an unsafe release, and if not, he'd have got 2 points. Agree with me there, Josh?
Yeah, a microcosm of their season, because they haven't scored since the opening round. Just a big disappointment, because they've got two really talented drivers there, but the hype train's falling flat because the car is falling flat on his face as well. So, what can you say? just disappointing, because there's a lot of potential there. Andretti know how to win, and so do both their drivers. So, there's a potential there, but I think this season is the rest of the season is just going to be a bit of a struggle, to be honest.
Yeah, and certainly it was a struggle for the final team today for Dragon, and it was a double DNF for both Jerome D'Ambrosio and Loic Duval. Again, we got written here, no talking points, but there really wasn't anything you can really comment on it. It was just poor reliability from both the cars. D'Ambrosio's car kept slowing down over the course of the race, and really, I mean, it was just a disappointing day, for Dragon. But provided the cars worked properly, do you think, Josh, that either of those guys could have scored points?
Probably not today, but it's at the end of the day. They've shown this kind of season that they can get the top results, which is why I don't think they're quite the slowest car. I think they're the slowest overall package, just because they never really have a car that works. But when it is working, I think both drivers can get the job done, especially D'Ambrosio. I really do actually rate him as a Formula E driver. I think he's kind of right up there in kind of the top kind of 6 or 7 drivers in this series. So I think we know he can really deliver the goods. And Duval might be on his way out of the team, we'll have to see. But, as he kind of proved, I think it was in Argentina, he can still deliver on his day. So hopefully that day will be again in Paris, where hopefully they'll both have a car that will get them to the end.
Yeah, and Toby, I don't know if you've got anything else to add to that, to Dragon's disappointing race.
Just purely that, it can't get any worse, so therefore it must just get better.
Neatly summed up, love it. So that was the Monaco ePrix reviewed nicely there, and so that means the next ePrix is actually very nearby, actually, the Paris ePrix. And so heading into that race, obviously, we've got a couple of driver changes. We've got Tom Dillman coming back. He'll be replacing Mauro Engel. And so Mauro Engel, he actually had a decent race here today, but I don't know what you two think, whether you think that's a decent move by Venturi or not.
Well, Engel's driving DTM, so he's just should be a kind of stand-in event for Dillman, with a view to maybe do it next year with another team. So Engel should be back in the car for round 7, but Dillman should be a decent stand-in my opinion, because V8 3.5 champion, was always good in GP2, so yeah, it's good to see him getting his break.
Okay, and Toby, I don't know if you have anything else to say on the Tom Dillman front?
Purely the fact I can't really say much about him. The only place I remember him from was where he raced for Russian Tommy Sam Bird in 2013, I think, in GP2, and he seemed a pretty good driver then, so I don't see why he wouldn't be a bad replacement for Engel. And maybe because Sarrazan's aging a little bit, it might be like Josh says, perhaps a view to get him in for next year, but nothing else to really say apart from that.
Okay, and then aside from that, we've also got another driver that should be coming in for the next ePrix. We got Conway, who should be coming back, who raced for Venturi last season, replacing Jacques Villeneuve after Villeneuve's annoyingly disappointing Formula E season last time out. But Conway certainly, I mean, Villeneuve had a really disappointing season last season, and Conway, by comparison, was better. But yeah, I mean, Conway coming back in, and again, what do you two think on it?
He was in Superpole on his Formula E debut, and then it's all downhill from there. So I think cool to get another chance, but he's not. I don't think he's one of the Formula E elite, but cool to get another chance, and good commentator and a nice guy as well. So yeah.
And Toby, do you have anything else to say about that or not?
Nothing much really. Just looking at the standings from last year's Paris ePrix, and he finished, apart from the retirees, second last. So I suppose it's another British driver on the grid for a race, but nothing really else to say. There's not much else to discuss, is there? It's not like you've got Nico Rosberg coming in or anything. Come on, Rosberg. Give us some excitement.
It's the last round we're watching out for when Buemi's shouldn't be there for Renault Edams. They're going to get someone in that Renault Edams. That should be pretty exciting to have someone else.
What, are you implying
car.
Rosberg will be coming in?
Yeah, basically. And we've got 2 DS Virgin seats as well.
Just to discuss that though, that would be a bad show, wouldn't it, for Formula E if Buemi had to do that race meeting, because it ends up that Degrassi, unless Buemi can bring out such a margin, because it's 2 races in Montreal, it would be a bit of an embarrassment, wouldn't it, that Degrassi wins it by default?
Yeah, basically.
Or on the contrary, if Buemi doesn't do the final race and then he's so far ahead that he doesn't even need to do the final race, or the final 2 races.
Embarrassing as well.
Yeah, because it's a double header at Montreal, isn't it?
It's a bit of a catch-22, I suppose, there, but hopefully we never need to discuss that, because hopefully he'll be granted to do the last race. You'd have thought he'd do the last race anyway. It makes a little bit more sense, doesn't it?
Yeah, but I don't know. Toyota are pretty strict. We'll have to see if they can. But yeah, like I said, hopefully they can get some kind of agreement. But at the moment, it's looking unlikely. I think we're getting Alex Lynn in for the DS Virgin team, and then I'm not quite sure who else is coming in, but keep an eye on that one for sure, because it's coming around pretty quick. After having 5 rounds in a year, we're having 5 rounds in a month, pretty much. So yeah, thick and fast.
Let's not discuss driver changes anymore. Let's just preview what's coming in the next week, rather than talk about what might happen in the next 8 weeks. I think because even though we'd love to discuss Buemi and all that, we need to discuss the
who's your Paris ePrix winner then, Toby? Let's just go around do predictions and then we'll wrap it up.
Sorry, Nathan, we're just discarding you as a host here.
That's fine.
We're both doing it. My Paris ePrix winner will be Jean-Eric Verne.
Nathan, whatever your name is.
I'm going to be really boring and say Buemi.
Yeah, that's what I was going to say, but you're going to have a bit of variety, haven't you? So, Jean-Eric Verne, home win, debut win for Techeetah. Be really nice as well to see. Logistically, a Degrassi win would be better, but, who cares about the championship now,
I'm just gonna, say Felix Roqueteau to win. But yeah, I hope you've all enjoyed this our review of the 5th round of the FIA 2016 to 2017 Formula E season. You can join us next week for our Paris ePrix review. Should be hopefully up on Saturday. And yeah, thank you so much for hosting, Nathan. You can go and have a lie
That's
down.
alright. I'm not hosting anymore. But
no.
Okay, yeah.
You can say the last word. Go on.
No, I don't want to say the last word, no. No, don't worry, I'm not the host anymore. It's not my job.
Alright, you can find us on Twitter at Motorcast_, and you can find all our personal Twitters as well down in the description below. Most importantly, you can find me on Twitter at Joshua Satil, and the other 2 will be down there if you're a bit bored. But yeah, see you next time. Thank you so much for watching.
And in classic Nathan style, come on, Nathan.
What? On, you want to go, and I'll see you then?
Yes, please.
Goodbye.
Come on, I'm waiting.
What, I already did it? Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, and we'll see you then.